We're sending another little one down because we got a few more hands out, which thank you guys. That is wonderful. And thank you, Elise, for coming down. How wonderful. Thank you so very much. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Appreciate the generosity. And for each of you guys, can you guys say thank you? Oh, wonderful. Because this is our month of Thanksgiving. We should be more thankful, right? It's November now. Yes, thankful hearts. Which brings me to my story. This is a very old story. And it's been told many different ways because it is so old. So if it's familiar to you guys, you've probably heard it before. And it's an old story back before there were cell phones, back before there were even telephones, back before horses, or back before cars, people rode horses or had to walk everywhere. This woman, she was at her home baking up a beautiful cake, and her beautiful daughter was just at that perfect age, 5. Do I have anybody 5 here? I know somebody's 5 because I'm looking at her, but that's okay. 5 years old. And 5's that great age where we have a lot of questions and we start noticing a lot of things that maybe we hadn't before. And she was watching as mommy was putting together all the ingredients in the cake, and she kept watching her carefully, and she's like, Mommy, why are your hands so gnarly and ugly looking? Meg's mommy doesn't have hands like that, and Hannah's mommy does. Mommy, why are your hands so ugly? Mommy sat there for a moment trying to think of how she could explain to her beautiful daughter why her hands looked this way. And she decided it was time to tell her the story. Well, you see, sweetheart, when you were just a beautiful little baby, I had put you down for sleep, for your nap time. And you were all comfy and cozy. And our next door neighbor, she came over and she said, Oh, I just baked up a pie, and I would love for you to come over and have tea and pie with me. And she thought, but I don't want to disturb the baby while she's sleeping. And back then, people would feel comfortable leaving the baby right there in the house. Nobody was going to hurt the baby. She was fine. So she went next door to have some of this delicious pie and some tea, when suddenly she noticed she smelled smoke, which made her look outside, and the smoke was coming from her home. Oh my goodness, her baby's in the home. She quickly ran next door. Flames were already coming through. The neighbor was running to the other neighbors to help get buckets of water and to try to get the fire brigade. But the mommy knew they wouldn't get in there quick enough. Her baby was asleep in there, and she thought the only thing she could do was to run in there herself. And she knew this could mean that she could die. This could mean that she could get hurt, but she didn't care about that because her baby was in that house, and she was going to go get that baby if it even had to take her life. And so she ran inside, and the flames were already licking up all around her, and she put a wet blanket around herself, and she managed to make it to the baby's room. And she took that wet blanket and she wrapped it around the baby, and she ran back out, and in it, she ended up getting the flames on her, but the baby was wrapped in the nice wet blanket, so nothing happened to her. And the neighbors and friends started patting all of those flames out on her back and her arms and her legs, and she lived, but she was left with scars. Scars to always remember how she had chose to save her baby. And as she relayed this story to her daughter looked at her hands. And now, instead of seeing them ugly and gnarled, instead, tears started coming down her little face. And she said, oh, mommy, you have the most beautiful hands in all the world. And she started kissing them and putting them against her cheek. And she just thought, they're so beautiful, mommy. And you know what? We have a Father who loved us so much, so much. He gave everything he had because he says, I want to make sure you get to live. And he, to this day, shares those scars. They'll never go away. Someday we get to have new bodies when we get home to heaven, huh? He said he's going to give us a new body. I won't have the scars, and I've got some scars on me. They won't be there anymore. But Jesus will always have his scars. And you know how we know it? After Jesus was raised from the dead, he came back to visit his disciples and to show them that he really was who he said he was. He showed them the scars, and we can read about that in John 20. And we go to verse 19 and 20. It says, on the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together in the doors locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood amongst them and said, peace be with you. After he said this, he showed them his hands and his sides. And the disciples were overjoyed when they saw that it was their Lord. They knew because they saw the nail scars in his hands and the scar on his side. They knew it was Jesus, and we'll always be able to look at those beautiful hands and say, Lord, those are the most beautiful hands ever, because those are the hands that saved me. So I hope as you guys go through your November that you remember every day to say, thank you, Jesus, for the life you have given me, because it costs so much. I have a little treat for you guys as you go back. Happy Sabbath.